Good afternoon and morning from the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Matt Strain, and welcome to DadX Discussions here in the month of March. We have an interesting topic today. It's a tough one, too. We're going to talk about guns, and more importantly, we're going to talk about how to talk to our kids about guns. One thing that I want to point out, this discussion is not intended to be a debate about gun rights. This is not intended to be a debate about whether or not people should or should not have guns. The fact is, we live in America. A lot of us do anyway. And guns are a fact of life. I live in North Carolina. My wife and I choose not to have any kind of firearms in our home. But I'm not a fool. I live in North Carolina. I'm fairly certain that when my kids go over to one of their friends' houses, there's a fair to midland chance that one of their friends, their parents are going to have firearms. And I want to make sure that my kids are informed and know what to do in the event that they come across a gun, that they understand what safe gun handling is and what to do when those kind of things aren't being taken care of. Now, as a self-professed non-gun person myself, I'm obviously not the authority to talk about this at all. So I reached out to one of our board members at the National At-Home Dad Network. He's actually our board treasurer, and that's Paul Gordon. Paul Gordon is an outdoorsman, definitely a hunter, and certainly more knowledgeable about this topic than I'll ever be. And so without further ado, let me bring on Paul. Morning, Paul.
Morning.
It is still morning where you are. That's right.
It is, yes.
It's only afternoon on the East Coast. So if you would, Paul, take a little bit of time, let people know, your background and, how guns fit into your life and your family.
So I've been hunting since age 12, shooting probably since age 4 is when I first started shooting. So obviously I've been around guns and dealing with gun safety pretty much my whole life, more than almost 40 years. From a young age, you start young, 22s, 410 shotguns, which are small shotguns, things like that. And then you gradually move up. By the time I was 12, I was shooting geese with the 12 gauge. So it's gun safety, obviously very important. Gun conversations, very important. I hunt every year. I have my gun cabinet right here for my display guns, and then I have a heavy duty metal one in the back with all the work guns. So it just depends on what kind of gun it is. I own a handgun that is in a biometric safe. And the kids don't know where that is, but my wife can get into it. But most of pretty much all my other guns are long guns, and they're all in safes at all times, some sort of safe of all times.
Now, you mentioned display guns versus your, and I think you said functional.
Functional would be a good way to put it. Guns that aren't pretty, like ones you use most of the time.
Gotcha. Okay, so that would be more like your hunting guns.
Right. Yeah. So a display gun is something that you're not going to use all the time, or the really expensive guns. Like my most expensive gun is $2,000 MSRP right now. So, and then it goes down from there. Most of ours are less than $500 though, and those are the ones we use every day in the field because they're the ones that can get dirty, get wrecked, get stuff. But my most expensive gun is probably the one I shoot the most because that's my pheasant gun. That's what I do most of the time.
Okay. Now, again, you talked about, you have a heavy duty metal gun safe, you have a display cabinet, you mentioned a biometric safe for your handgun. Mm-hmm. Now I'm familiar with what a biometric safe is. Can you let other people know? Because again, I'm sure I'm not the only person watching this who really just doesn't know a whole lot about guns.
Yeah. So a biometric safe is a small safe. It's probably about like this big, so I should probably do it this way for the camera. So just enough for a handgun to go into. You use your fingerprint you log your fingerprint. You can log any of your fingers, all your fingers. So it's quick access. It opens up automatically as soon as you use your biometrics. There is a key override, and the key is kept in my heavy duty safe. So you'd have to have a key to get into the heavy duty safe to get it, the key for the biometric safe. But there is a key override, and that is in a safe place in the house.
Okay. So the idea being that the idea being that in case of an emergency, you don't have to go digging for a key.
Right.
You would merely put your thumb on the print reader, and that would unlock the safe, and you would be able to then get access to the firearm.
Correct.
Now, again, something that I've always heard is that you are always supposed to store the gun and the ammunition separately. Is that correct?
In general, that is correct. For a safe similar to that, though, it'd be unfeasible to do so for that type of safety setup. All of my other in the other situation for all these, there's no ammo anywhere near those guns. And then my other big safe, I have another small like lockbox for all my ammo. So it's just they are separated. In a situation in a biometric safe and what it's for, it's unfeasible to keep them separate.
That makes sense. But again, even though that gun or maybe like loaded and again, I was always taught to assume any gun that you see is loaded, whether it is or not.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as an unloaded gun. But even though that is ready to go, it is locked behind that fingerprint lock. And that's not something that you have to worry about your kids or one of your kids' friends getting their hands on.
Correct. They would really have to go searching to find it and also then be able to have the same fingerprints as us to get into it. So it would take a lot for someone to be able to get in there. They'd have to find the box and then be able to open it with a fingerprint. It's highly, I mean, obviously, like you said, every gun is loaded no matter what. If everybody treats every gun as it's loaded, then everybody's a lot safer. But it definitely is not unloaded.
Right. Now, one of the things that is always a tough one for me, and again, I grew up in a house where, I grew up in southern Louisiana. I had a BB gun as a kid. It was the 70s. Everybody had a BB gun as a kid back then. These days it's a little bit less common. I recently found out, oddly enough, it is illegal to fire a BB gun within the city limits of Durham, North Carolina. However, it's perfectly legal for my son to practice archery with a bow in the backyard. Which again, a 20-pound pull recurve bow is significantly more dangerous than most BB guns, but apparently they didn't think that one through.
You're not wrong.
Regardless, they're a little bit less common now. When I was a kid, I literally remember going to a friend's house and having one of my friends show me his dad's gun. Again, it was a very, very different time than it is now. Now, the things that you described, the way that you have your guns stored, the efforts that you go through to make sure that everybody in your home is kept safe, both from outside people as well as people within, and honestly, even from themselves. Is that common? Is that something, are most gun owners like practicing that level of responsibility in their storage and the rest of it?
I would hope so. I would say a good gun owner is going to be a safe gun owner. He's going to have his guns, or he or she, they are going to have their guns stored in the correct way. Obviously, you have to protect your kids by talking to them about the fact that there's a chance it won't be.
Right.
I've started at a young age because they go to my parents' house, they go to my wife's parents' house, they go to uncle's house. Everybody in my family and direct family owns guns. We're a big hunting group. I married my wife, and I was like, oh, she's a deer hunter. Great. She owned her own guns. So it was a perfect scenario. So I didn't have to worry about getting off for deer hunting, because she wanted to go too.
Right.
But so wherever they go in our family, they're going to be a potential to find a gun. So from a young age in our house, we talk to them about, what do you do if you find a gun? What do you, how do you treat a gun? Where do you point a gun? Like, it starts at a young age of, our general rule is, and we started at a young age, was saying, like, what do you do if you find a gun? And the response we needed was, don't touch it, tell an adult. And that was, and basically we'd randomly say it, like, hey, Wesley, what do you do if you find a gun? And that's what he would say every time from age 3 on. So
okay. So when you say start, you say start early, you mean start early. I mean, basically as soon as they're old enough to understand, the lessons that you're trying to teach.
Yes.
That's when you want to start.
That I definitely, like, any house the kids go into, you don't know for sure there's going to be a gun there, especially friends. I'm pretty open with my kids' friends and families. I say, I got guns here. They're all locked. Do you have any questions? I don't know for sure every family is going to be the same way when they send them to someone. So I started at a young age. I said, these are the rules, repeat after me. And I hope that if they ever are in that scenario, that is exactly what they do. But at that point, that's what you can. My oldest son now has gone through our hunter safety program in Wisconsin, and he actually got a better score than I did when I went through the hunter safety program. So I'm happy that he did that. He got 100% on both scores, so that was great. He went deer hunting with us with his own gun last year and was way more safe than I've been in the last 30 years. Hard to admit. He was like looking at the barrels of everybody's guns and making sure everybody's guns were up, where I just, worry about my own, where he's worried about everybody else's. So he was like very like on it, where me, I'm always just worried about myself. So it was really because, at the training or at the gun, basically hunter safety now is safe gun ownership and safe gun handling. They really didn't go through much hunting stuff. Where when I did hunter safety 30 years ago, it was all hunting and then a little bit of gun safety. So it's definitely changed. So he was like really like right on it. So like if he found a gun now, I would probably be comfortable with him like picking it up, make sure it's unloaded. He knows how to do that. He knows how to handle the different types of guns. He knows how to make sure it's unloaded. He knows how to be safe with it. Because he's at that age where he's been trained. Where my younger son, he definitely, it's don't touch it, tell an adult. He hasn't been fully trained yet. He's been shooting since they both started shooting when they were 6. So we went through the process, barrels down range, don't touch the trigger. I'd always block when they're at the young age. All they want to do is shoot, right? So I'd actually physically put my hand over the trigger guard, and so until they were ready to go, so that I would release my hand, then they could put their hand in the trigger guard and shoot. So it was just like that mental block for them to make sure that they would, or a physical block to create a future mental block to know that they're there. Now,
one of the things that I've done, and again, I have yet to receive a negative reaction to it, but there's always a selection bias because I'm dealing with the people that are in my kids' life, and we have our own communities, and communities tend to fall into certain, for lack of a better term, categories. When my kids go over to somebody's house for the first time, in general, there are 3 questions that I ask. One is I ask, are there any firearms in the house? And if they say yes, my only question is, are they stored properly? I don't need to know how many. I don't care what kind. I just wanted to know, are they stored properly? I generally also ask about drugs and alcohol in the house. And again, it's never a matter of, and I tend to group those together and just say, again, if you have any drugs or alcohol in the house, are they kept in a place where they're not easy access for kids? And I've never had anybody react negatively to that question. Now, that's not saying that it won't happen one day. Is that like as a gun owner, would you feel that that's an intrusive question to ask?
No, not at all. As a gun owner,
Okay.
I ask it. It's the same question I ask. Are there any guns in the house? Are they stored safely? Kids come to my house. I generally give that info to the parents. I wouldn't wait for them to ask, just so that in case their kid comes home and goes, there's guns all over the Gordons, like I just wanted to make sure. Because the kids play in the basement a lot, right behind me. They play, like, especially when they were younger, they played down there all the time. And there's a gun case right there. So I don't need that conversation getting a text message or a phone call. So I make sure that people are aware. Anybody that knows me knows I hunt. It's kind of like you're a vegan. You don't have to, you tell everybody. I tell everybody I hunt. I wear hunting clothes. I got deer antlers all over my house. Like, people know that there's more than likely a gun in our house. So it's definitely a conversation. Any gun, like I said, any gun owner, any good gun owner is a safe gun owner. And generally they are going to be okay with that question or conversation. They should be.
It's good.
Like, as long as you're not saying, where is it stored? Like, is it, like, as long as you're not asking like direct questions like that, which of course you're not, you said, it's as long as, do you have any, are they stored safe? Those are perfectly good questions to ask, and questions we should be asking, because sometimes I'd be like, oh yeah, I do have a gun out. Or, oh yeah, shoot, I was cleaning it and it's on the counter down in the basement or something like that. It reminds them to go put it away, and it can't be found, things like that. It should be definitely a question that everybody asks. It's how you keep your kids safe. It's how, as a gun owner, I want to make sure everybody's safe. Like, I don't want anybody getting killed by my guns, like, I don't.
No.
So it's definitely an important conversation to have, especially if you're going to a place for the first time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Again, I know that I've talked to a lot of other parents who talk about feeling uncomfortable asking that question, because for a lot of people, unfortunately, gun ownership has become a loaded political issue. And again, I grew up in Southern Louisiana. I live in North Carolina now. There's very much been a hunting culture around me my entire life. It was not something I participated in. Again, not because I have a moral objection to hunting. Mostly it's because I have a moral objection to waking up that early in the morning. I would be perfectly willing to go hunting if we could start at like 2 p.m. instead of waking up at 3 a.m. But I'm just not into getting up and sitting in the cold that long. I'm more than happy to butcher a deer for folks and cook the meat and the rest of it. But it was never a big pastime for me. Now, one of the things that's been interesting for me is that last year, my son got involved in scouting and joined the Cub Scouts. And last summer, we went on our first, quote unquote, cubbaree, which is where, there's a little 2.5-day cub camp, because anything over 72 hours requires all kinds of extra paperwork. And one of the things that they do at cubbaree are range and target activities, or shooting sports, whatever you want to call it. And that includes BB guns and archery and the little wrist rocket things, and the rest of it. And I found it really interesting because on the actual medical forms that you fill out before your kid's allowed to participate in any type of scouting activities, there's a box that you have to check to opt out of range and target activities. There's a box that you check that says, I don't want my kid to do BB guns. Which again, well, I mean, again, for anybody who's been involved in scouting for a long time, the A and B forms, you just kind of whiz through. I mean, you filled them out so many times. But I want to say it's on like page 1 or page B1, I think, right in the little corner. But when we went, I talked to my wife about it because, my wife is also, relatively a non-gun person. And I talked to her about it, and she was like, no, I don't have a problem with him shooting a BB gun. And again, at some point, if he sticks with scouting, he's going to move over to the troop level. And once, the kids move into the troop level, they actually begin working with actual firearms, which are, 22s and shotguns and, actual, like guns, firearms versus like a spring-loaded BB.
Right.
But 2 weekends ago, our local district held a training for range masters, which is the only training that scouting does for range sports, and it only covers the Cub Scouts. It covers archery, BBs, and wrist rockets. Once you move into firearms, all of that range safety instruction is done with certified NRA gun safety courses that are at a national level.
Yep.
So my son being in 3rd grade, we're a ways away from that. But it was interesting because one of the things that you talked about was that when you talked about finding, you've taught your kids from the time they were young, if you see a gun, don't touch it, tell an adult.
Mm-hmm.
With the range master training, even training the adults to work with the Cubs, what they told us was almost the same version of what you said, which was stop, don't touch, leave the area, and tell an adult, in that order.
Yeah.
Which, again, makes sense. It's all about the safety. And again, that was 99% of the training course was largely making sure that the kids are using using the rifle in a safe way, using the bow in a safe way, because again, they're kids, they get excited. I mean, anybody who's been around Cub Scouts has seen it where, a Cub Scout is trying really hard and they hit that bullseye with the BB gun and they immediately spin around to tell dad, did you see that? And the barrel of that gun spins right around with them.
Yep.
And, the most of the course was talking about, what you do as somebody in charge at that point is you stop everything and you make sure that you redirect them and you reinforce these rules. And, several of the people that were in the training asked the question of, well, I mean, these aren't even air guns. These are like spring-loaded BB guns. I mean, you can physically see the BB as it leaves the gun. It's slow enough.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, do we really need to be this much of sticklers about everything? And the point that the instructors made was that we're instilling the habits now so that when they move into firearms, they've already got the habits in place.
That's exactly right.
Which again kind of goes back to that starting the kids early.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that I'm not aware of, and again, I know, especially in this day and age, probably the largest, and again, this is just simply in my opinion and from what I've seen on news coverage and the rest of it, the largest group of gun ownership that is expanding right now are people who are picking up firearms for personal protection, home protection. It's not like we've had a huge boom in hunting as a hobby.
Right.
Hunting has always been a hobby in America, but I don't see a whole lot of people picking it up for that. And we've had more and more people moving into having the firearms in their homes for home protection, or they've got their concealed carry permits and they're carrying them with them. Some states have open carry laws where you can, openly carry a firearm in public for whatever reason. And again, we're not here to debate those issues. That's not our job. We elect people to make those decisions and talk about that. But you mentioned this site to me earlier called projectchildsafe.org. And one of the things that you said that they do is they help teach gun owners ways to keep their guns safe in the home. Um, you had mentioned something about like gun locks.
Yep. Yeah. So
Yeah. So
I'm not affiliated with Project Child Safe, but
yeah.
they definitely, so don't take this as an endorsement of any of the stuff there, but they do have responsible gun ownership links. They have free safety kits. They have training stuff, and they also have free gun locks if you need a gun lock. Most guns come with a gun lock now, but there are a lot of people who do not have the amount of gun locks they have for guns. They offer free gun locks. Usually, if you go to any police department, they'll give you a free gun lock as well. I do know that. I find the stuff on there is good information for anybody that doesn't have a gun or is just getting a gun for the first time. I'd recommend for anybody who's getting a gun for the first time to go to an actual, especially a handgun, to go to an actual training session at a gun shop or a gun range.
Gotcha.
One thing is to make sure that you're getting one that fits correctly. A lot of gun ranges let you rent them, and you can just swap out to find one that fits correctly. Then also they go through like they should be going through responsible gun ownership. I know there's a woman-owned gun range near here that they have specific classes on actual gun safety, which is actually like very interesting to find at a gun range. But that's why my wife likes going to that gun range. They care about that
Nice.
stuff.
Well, I was going to say, I don't have the experience with guns, but my son
Right.
has been doing archery classes for the last 3 years.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I love about the archery shop that he uses, on top of having this amazing indoor range, the woman who owns the shop, who is also his instructor, to say that she is a stickler for range safety would be the grossest understatement in the world. I literally watched her hand a refund back to 2 guys who just weren't following the range rules, and calmly tell them that they're not welcome here anymore. Y'all can just go, and give them their range fees back.
Yeah, they don't want there's some ranges where they let you pay at the front and you go back and you do whatever you want. And I'm sure they probably watch video to make sure everybody's safe, but they're not like there. Or there's other ranges where there's a person like there, they're making sure everybody's safe. They're making sure that nobody's shooting. If anybody, they actually do the work, and it's just, it depends on where you are.
So one of our viewers, Dane, put out a question there saying, Paul, what would be the best way to start a child out with firearms and marksmanship? His son is 4, and they're looking at getting into marksmanship as a helpful, fun tool and learning experience. Yeah, where do you start, especially with a kid who's 4 years old?
I started shooting 22s at 4. I started my kids at 6. But they were shooting BB guns. I have a BB gun. They've been shooting since probably earned that. I don't really count that into shooting because it doesn't have any kick. BB guns are the way to start, or pellet guns. You can get fairly inexpensive daisies for $50 to $100. I don't know, depending on your market. And just getting the used to loading and shooting and being safe. You can get fairly inexpensive 22s. They call them crickets. They're smaller. They're smaller frame for a smaller kid. We never got one. My youngest son wanted one because they look so cool because they were different colors. I'm like, they're fairly expensive. They're single shot, single load. Kid, you really have to be very manipulative with it, so the kids are learning how to use the gun correctly. And it's a small frame 22, so you can start shooting at a younger age. Then you go up to your bigger guns. The big thing about it that I think is you're letting your kid take a big responsibility at a young age of being safe. So you're not only teaching them marksmanship, you're teaching them responsibility. Because it is a big responsibility, and you're hammering it in all the time. Like, it's, before we start shooting again, especially when my kids were younger, it's, hey, we're going out to the range. Remember the rules. You got to be safe. The barrel's got to be pointed down range. Like, you're enhancing that, or you're not enhancing. Well, you're enhancing the conversation every time, making sure that they're safe. You're teaching not only marksmanship, but you're teaching responsibility at the same time. It helps that grow. I think marksmanship comes with practice, though. So the more they put down range, the better they're going to be. I mean, I sucked when I started shooting. My kids sucked when they started shooting. Everybody does. So,
I'm not gonna lie. We did the range master training on the 14th, and I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a BB gun.
yeah.
We're not talking like I didn't like bullseye. I did not hit the paper target one time out of like 6
Yeah.
shots. I mean, it was bad.
It takes a lot of shoot. It takes a lot of putting stuff down range to become a marksman. I think it is a good way to teach kids responsibility at a young age, though. Personally, as I've done it, they get a lot of personal responsibility out of it. They know that they're in charge of something that could harm someone else, and if they're not doing it safely, that can happen. So you have to reinforce those rules all the time. I don't know if Dane.
Yeah, no.
I've talked with Dane, but I don't know if Dane's a firearm owner, so I'm not sure if he has anything he can start him on.
Well, I was gonna say I know Dane lives way out in the country, so
yeah, I imagine he's got something.
Yeah, I mean, I know most folks that I know that live way out in the country have something just in case. But again, I think I agree with you on the fact that it's a good way to teach responsibility in that. And then one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about is you already mentioned going out and hunting with your kids. Now, again, as a dad, my daughter is now 12. My son is turning 9 in a month. So, they're getting to that age where, hanging out with dad is nowhere near as cool as it used to be, right?
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for things that we can do together. It's one of the reasons that when my son got involved in scouting, I got involved in scouting as an adult, so that we can do that together. Hunting is obviously something that you can do with your kids, right?
Right. As a kid, the only real way to start hunting is with your parent or an uncle or aunt, or it's hard to get into hunting outside of a family. So if your kid is interested in hunting specifically and you're not, you either have to find somebody or you have to get involved. Obviously, I grew up hunting at a young age. My kids are going to be, my oldest son got his first deer last year. So it's definitely something great in our family. We eat most of our meat is wild game. So it's definitely a way to get out with the kids. I mean, I loved hunting with my dad. I still hunt with my dad every year. We go on a hunting trip and we deer hunt every year with my dad on my dad's property. It's a way to have a lifetime of memories with your family. And it's definitely a way to stay, to have fun. I don't know, we don't do, I know a lot of people hear about the Wisconsin, I'm from Wisconsin. I don't know if everybody knew that. The Wisconsin deer camp, everybody talks about the traditional Wisconsin deer camp when everybody goes and gets drunk and then they hunt for 2 hours. And we don't do that. We stay at my parents' house. We maybe have a couple beers, but we're up at 5 a.m. getting the deer stands and we hunt all day used to be before I had kids, we were hunted all 9 days of the Wisconsin gun rifle season. We're out there all day, every day.
Nice.
Now it's a little bit more difficult with the kids, but we are there opening weekend. We're there the second weekend, which is Thanksgiving weekend, and we hunt all day and try to get as many deer as possible. This last year, I didn't with Wesley's deer, and then my wife got 2 opening weekend. I didn't need any. We didn't need the meat, so I was only waiting for a big buck. So I did this first year. I didn't get a deer in 30 years, 20 years, something like that. Crazy.
Wow.
My dad's like, I don't remember last time you didn't get a deer. I'm like, I don't either. So, but I was just I was very selective. I could have shot probably 30, but, so it is definitely a way to get back to the original question. It is definitely a way to be active with your kids. Especially if they're interested in it. If they aren't interested in it, it's something that's going to be, especially nowadays with technology, it's hard to get them interested in something like that. If they're interested in it, I would lean into it. If you have a friend that hunts, ask them if your kid can go with, like, it's just, if you don't want to get into it, it's definitely a way to get away from screens, get out in the wilderness, enjoy being outdoors. I still do it. It's something you're going to do. I mean, how to ruin a kid's life, teach them how to hunt, right?
Right. Well,
they're going to spend a lot of money on hunting.
Well, and again, you hit the nail on the head with the screens. And I mean, again, slight hypocrisy is both of us sit here and broadcast on screens for everybody to watch. But again, I think most of us look at limiting the amount of time that our kids spend on screens. We did the Cub Scout camp out with my son's pack last weekend for the covery, hence the reason I have a tent drying out behind me. But one of the things that I found incredibly eye-opening was that, like, when my son and I go out camping, like, even my phone, like, stays in my pocket. Like, the only reason it's there is in case, like, my wife is reaching out to me because there's an emergency, or there's an emergency while we're out there and I've got to call somebody. But, like, we're not watching TV or listening to music or playing games. But the number of other families that when the kids were given, like, free time to go out and enjoy themselves, the number of kids that I saw sitting in a camp chair in front of their tent with a tablet in their hand was so disappointing to me.
Yeah.
My kid was literally, the second they said free time, all he wanted to do was go fishing. I mean, that was it. Like, we go fishing now, right? And I'm like, sure, let's go. And he sat out there with his little, like, short Zebco fishing pole. I'm sure we all remember those. And I fish with my dream, because like many people who grew up in the 70s and was an outdoorsy youth in the 70s, I had a dream, and that dream was the Ronco Pocket Fisherman that I saw advertised on TV for $19.99 my entire life. And I asked for a pocket fisherman for Christmas probably from the time I was 7 until close to my teenage years, and never got one. And believe it or not, my mom found one and gave me a pocket fisherman for my 53rd birthday. And I take it out with me on every camping trip, and I sit there and I fish with my little Ronco pocket fisherman. I'm sure if I ever hook a fish on it, it's going to, like, break in half instantly. But until it breaks, I'm going to use it, because I waited 40 something years to get it, But again, like, my kid just wanted to fish, but the number of kids that I saw gravitating toward dad's phone or, their tablet or whatever else was just really, really disappointing to me overall.
Yeah, we have my older son's in Boy Scouts, and or whatever it is now, Scouts BSA or Scout in America. I don't know what it's called anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think legally it's Scouts BSA is what they call it once it hits the troop level. Still, some people still call it Boy Scouts, Scouting. I mean, it's scouting.
Scouting. He's at the troop level. He's been in it because crossover was a February, so he's a year and a month now. At his troop, the rule is at anytime there's scouting, no screens whatsoever. So no phones, no tablets, no nothing. So at troop meetings, none of the kids can have phones. My kids don't have phones, so it doesn't really matter to us. But no kids can have phones at just the troop meetings. If they go camping, there's no phones unless they have a medical reason to have a phone, like if they have, like, diabetes or something like that, and they need to keep track of it. Obviously, those are different scenarios. And they only can use it for that. They can't get on. They can't get on it for anything else. If they get caught, then I don't know what their policy on that is, but everybody knows no screens. They said one time they went to, like, one of those national jamborees. I don't know if you've heard of those. And
oh yeah,
they went as a troop to the whole national jamboree, and their troop was like the only troop that had that rule, apparently, and
Mm-hmm.
they're known that they were camped in. And they said every scout was on their phone except their troop. And their troop was like going around and doing everything. So there's like this, like their troop has all these pictures of everything that was being done. And then all the other troops, like their kids are just sitting there on their phone. And it's like, and they're like, it was weird. It's like, that should be like a scouting rule. Like,
Well, all I can think of is again, and maybe I'm crazy, but the last time I looked, the cost to go to Jamboree is borderline Disney trip.
right. It's expensive as heck.
You
to get
know,
there.
like if I'm going to spend that much money going to Jamboree and I catch my kids staring at a phone, we're going to have words.
Right. I'm like, I'm glad that that's the rule. Cause like I said, my kids don't have phones. So I'm like, but you know, if they're at somewhere where a kid has a phone, they're over their shoulders and they're trying to like, look,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like, oh, what game are you playing? You know, like, and it's like, that doesn't happen at our scouting troop. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I don't hunt. But again, hunting is one of those things kind of like fishing. They call it fishing, not catching. You know, hunting is the same thing. You know, you may go out and not bring home anything. But when I go out fishing with my son and we don't catch anything, worst case scenario, I got to spend a couple hours hanging out by the water, tossing the line in and hanging out with my kid.
Right.
And we get to talk and have conversations. I'm assuming it's similar with hunting. I mean, they're whispered conversations because the deer can hear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little less obviously than fishing. Fishing, we're just talking, shooting the breeze.
Well, yeah, because despite what our grandfather told us, despite what my granddad always told me, no, the fish can't hear you.
Right. That, you know, like it's funny when for fishing when we're on my brother-in-law's boat, he's always like, you gotta be quiet. Well, when the fish aren't biting, we'll like throw some music on or something like that, and then all of a sudden the fish start biting. Like I don't know, the vibrations in the water like gets them going. I have no idea. It's really funny though, like how that works. Like be quiet. Oh, it's actually opposite sometimes. But it's fishing you can talk, like right, like it's different. Hunting, you talk in between, like different types of hunting. Like if you went duck or goose hunting, like you talk all the time until you see them coming, right? And then you're every quiet calls. And then, but deer hunting, you got to be quiet. We whisper, but like I'll be like, where my deer stand is, I can usually see a bunch far away. They can't shoot at. They're really far away. So it's a lot of like you grab your binoculars and look at that one. What do you see out there? You know, conversations like that because they're far away. But as soon as like they start walking towards us, then it's not really. It's like they're just small whispers and that's it. It's more really got to be really quiet. It it teaches kids patience because everything is now, mine. And it's like hunting, you're going to come home with nothing. And you sat there for 3 hours, 4 hours. There's a good chance you're not going to come home with a deer because you don't come home every time with one. So it teaches them patience and failure, I think, too, is a big thing.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. Well, getting back on topic, because we kind of got off on the whole outdoors thing, which again, firearms kind of go hand in hand with that.
They do.
But
Yeah.
when it comes to talking to your kids, you know, just to go over what we were talking about earlier, it's never too soon to talk to them about it. Especially talking about, you know, the general rules of safety. Like if you see a gun, don't touch it. Tell an adult. You know, that there's no harm in asking other families when your kid's going over to their house, especially once they reach that age where, you know, a play date is no longer also the play date for you and their parents. Once you hit that age where you actually get to drop them off somewhere, there's no harm in asking the question of whether or not there are firearms in the house and are they stored properly. That's a perfectly reasonable question to ask somebody, and that, you know, teaching your kids about proper gun safety is really important. One question I wanted to ask you, and this is a tough topic to bring up. It really is. as a gun owner and as somebody who has multiple guns in the house, one of the really disturbing statistics that keeps popping up in our country more and more is the rate of self-inflicted injury and suicide
Mm.
in this country, especially among men. Um, do you talk to your kids about that?
No, I
Okay.
can. Um, that's something I should be. I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question.
As a parent, does it raise? Are you concerned that by having firearms in the house, um, it creates an avenue of harm that wouldn't be there otherwise?
It does. I guess we do have that concern, which is why we do the right things to make sure that the guns are stored safely, and that they wouldn't have access to them without our permission or being there. So you kind of eliminate the possibility by being safe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's not a conversation I've had. I don't know. Gosh, never even thought about it. Like I just do the things that are right to make sure that they are
Yeah.
not have the avenue to do that. It obviously is a sensitive conversation. As they get older, it's probably a conversation that we probably end up having. But at a young age, it's how to be safe and how to make sure that that they stay safe.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, it's one of those things that I think about. I mean, again, my wife is a psychiatrist who works in the emergency psychiatry department. So this is something that's a little bit closer to the surface in our lives than it is in a lot of other people's, because my wife and partner goes out every day and meets these kinds of issues head on.
Right.
So it's something that comes to mind, and was just a thought that kind of popped into my head because, again, the last thing any of us want is to see any of our kids hurt, whether it's somebody else doing the hurting or whether it's them hurting themselves. Nobody wants that at all. Well, look,
And
we
ideally, you don't want your kid to be the unsafe kid that hurts somebody else either. Like,
right.
Because my kids are comfortable with it. They could become the unsafe kid that ends up harming someone else accidentally. So you want to make sure, because they're around it, they may be too confident. My dad always makes sure the guns are unloaded. Oh, it'll be unloaded, and then they pull it out and show their friend, and it's not unloaded. Like they don't. Yeah. They become too confident in what I do, so I have to make sure. And as an owner, you should make sure that no matter what you think about, you need to make sure that you're not at a young age, you're not touching the gun, and how to be safe with it. And that's an important thing to instill for anybody's children. That gun is loaded, no matter what. It is loaded, and you need to treat it as such.
Yeah, because again, not a day goes by that we don't hear. Not a day goes by that we don't hear about something involving a firearm in this country. But more often than anybody would like, it seems to be accidental.
Yeah, and that's
and those accidental situations often end in tragedy.
Right, and I at Home Dad Con, we talked about, me and Charlie talked to, we had a breakout, and it was also part of it is there's a lot of adults that don't know how to handle guns safely because they've never been trained. And if you're not comfortable with a gun, if you find a gun, you do the same thing,
Oh, absolutely.
Don't touch it and go find a trusted adult, right? I really wanted to be able to have guys handle guns with Texas laws and such. We couldn't do it because there's not everybody knows how to unload a gun safely, or check to make sure it's loaded safely. So if you find a gun, you call the police, right? If you find it, and you don't want to mess with it, like I know how to check every type of gun. Like I've owned or have handled pretty much every type. I don't have a problem with it. I've been around guns my whole life. If you've never touched one, don't touch it. Same rules.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hit the opposite end of that spectrum. I mean, I've had a couple of friends who have taken me to the range, to fire off a couple of shots. And honestly, they did everything and then just handed me a gun that was on safety and said, point that way and try to hit. And,
Right.
I did it. It was, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was entertaining. Not something I'm going to go out of my way to do again, but I am that person. Like if I found a gun laying around, I have no idea how to unload most of them. I know what I've seen on television.
Right. And most of that,
I'm fairly certain that like something simple like a revolver, I can, look at the back and see that, the little tubes are empty. But other than that, I would have no clue. Right. I mean, I would have absolutely no clue how to know whether or not like a shotgun or a 22 or anything like that was loaded or unloaded.
Right.
And
that's where a lot of accidents can happen too, is someone who isn't 100% sure on how to do it and tries it anyway because they're trying to be safe, but they don't know. So
yeah,
don't, as much as this conversation is about kids, it's also to adults that aren't as confident as someone like me. There's a lot of guns in America. It's you're going to run into them. Yeah, there's more guns in America than there's Americans. So it's an unfortunate, I'm a gun owner. I mean, I enjoy shooting. I go hunting. I still think there's a lot of things we can do to improve our gun laws. So don't take it the wrong way, but there's guns everywhere. And it's an unfortunate scenario where people are going to run into them who are inexperienced and accidents will happen. And that's what we're trying to stop.
Yeah. And that's it. That's what we're trying to avoid more than anything else. And again, as much as I would love to protect my children, and if I had a choice and I could magically snap my fingers and have my kids never encounter a gun, I'd be okay with that. But that magic doesn't exist and it's not going to happen. Yeah. So we have no choice but to be prepared. And again, it all goes back to what, you were talking about earlier, teaching them for a very young age. If you see that gun, stop, don't touch it, leave the area, and make sure that you tell a trusted adult.
Yep.
That, hey, there's a gun in there and that needs to get taken care of. Look, Paul, we're coming up on an hour now. I really want to thank you for your time. This is not, this isn't an easy conversation for a lot of people. Firearms in general, pardon the pun, but it's a loaded conversation with politics.
Yep.
Again, my whole goal in this was to talk about safety and reality and leave the politics to other people. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. Look, I want to thank you guys who joined us live. I want to thank everybody who is watching this on replay, whether it's on YouTube or on our Facebook page. I want to remind people that coming up in October of this year, we are going to have our 30th annual Home Dad Con back home in Chicago, downtown. Please check it out at homedad.org. You'll be able to find links to Home Dad Con. Remember, we are a volunteer run and operated organization. If you are interested in volunteering to help us out, please reach out to Dale Van Vlera, our volunteer coordinator. You can reach him at the email address that is on the screen now. Feel free to follow us on Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever, Facebook. Again, please check out Home Dad Chat. You can listen on Spotify or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Brock and Danny are doing at least a show a week at this point. And it's the number one podcast for stay-at-home dads that's out there. Most importantly, please support our mission by becoming a member today. All of these things that we provide out there, whether it's DadX or the podcast or the Dad Lounge, which is our weekly hangouts on Monday night and Tuesday nights via Zoom. All of these things cost money to do, and it is through our membership that we're able to afford to provide these to everybody, whether you're a member or not. In the meantime, I want to thank everybody for being here. We're going to be back next month on, pardon me, I just blanked on the date. Give me 1 second. We're going to be back next month, the same bat time and channel on Wednesday, April the 8th at 12 noon Eastern, where we're going to be talking to Tommy Maloney, and we're going to be talking about some of navigating the modern day aspects of co-parenting and being a bonus dad. More and more families are blended these days. More and more people are co-parenting, and it's not easy. And as many of us that are out there that are stay-at-home dads, we've also got a lot of dads who are at-home dads who are doing it by themselves or co-parenting with an ex-partner, and this is for them. This is ways that we can all work together with our partners, whether we're still with them or not, to make sure that we're helping our kids out as best we can. So we will see you next month. And in the meantime, everybody have a great day. Thanks for your time. Bye.